What's up, everyone? It's Father Grush again, giving you another update on our pilgrimage to the Holy Land. I'm not sure if you knew this, but there are 52 days until Christmas from today. But on our pilgrimage, we had the opportunity to finally start preparing for Christmas, even in the place where Jesus himself was born. Yesterday, we arrived in Jerusalem, where we are staying at the Notre Dame Center, this beautiful place right here. It's actually owned by the Vatican city-state just outside of the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. But of course, Jerusalem would have to wait, as we were first going on a short drive south to the city of Bethlehem. Bethlehem, the word means house of bread, and it's been around since the days of the Canaanites. But things have changed a lot since then. It's now the home of square bucks and stars and bucks, just in case you were interested. But it's also now a bustling city that is full of activity, especially with pilgrims traveling through it. Bethlehem is, of course, famous within our faith for being the birthplace of two people. We have David, who is the son of Jesse, who was in the fields caring for the flocks of his father when Samuel came and anointed him as the king of Israel. But of course, and the reason why we were there was because it's the birthplace of David's descendant, Jesus of Nazareth. In fact, that's actually why they were in Bethlehem in the first place, is they were there to register for the census that the emperor had called. Each had to go back to the place of his ancestry. And so Joseph took the family, the Holy Family, to Bethlehem in order to be there for the census. But of course, as we know from the Christmas story, upon arrival, Joseph and Mary, extremely pregnant and ready to give birth to her son, were both turned away, only given a stable. Maybe it was because they didn't have room in the inn. Maybe it was because the Jews believed that contact with Mary would make them ritually impure. So they were given shelter in a stable, which is more likely a cave than an actual building. And meanwhile, angels appeared in the sky to shepherds who were there in the fields, declaring that Jesus was to be born. Glory to God in the highest, they said. The same fields where in the Old Testament, Ruth met Boaz, who she married and became the grandmother of King David, that is where the shepherds were gathered, and that is where the angels declared this good news to them. Shepherds still patrol those fields today, and we had the awesome opportunity to be able to celebrate our daily mass in one of those shepherd caves. It was a little cramped, but it was very powerful to be in the very caves where shepherds would have gathered and would have heard that song of Gloria from those angels in the sky. And those same words, Gloria and Excelsis, are everywhere along this beautiful church. From there, we headed to the Church of the Nativity in Nativity Square, where, and you wouldn't believe it, they are getting ready for Christmas already. I had been to the church a few years ago, but this was really the first time that I had the opportunity to walk through the church and see some of these things in detail. One of the things that really struck me was that this church is one of the oldest churches in the history of Christendom, and it's one of the oldest in the world. Large portions of the church, like the floor and the columns, were coming from the 300s AD, only just a few years after Christianity had been legalized in the Roman Empire. And so we entered through the door of humility, which is only a few feet wide and a few feet high, and it forces pilgrims to bend in humility upon entering that church. There's a long history about why it is that way. I'm not going to get into it. I don't even know if I know it, but it's a good image of what we celebrate here, which is the humility of Jesus. He could have come in any time or any place. He could have come in a bustling town. He could have come in a huge city, but he chose to come to Bethlehem and to be born among us. St. Athanasius, one of the early fathers of the church, said that God became man so that man could become like God. So we stood in line to go to one of the deepest and holiest places in this church, which contains a silver star that has 14 points representing the series of 14 generations between the different stages in Jesus' genealogy. But it marks the very place where Jesus was born. We got to venerate that place. I got a chance to kneel down and to kiss that place. And then we were able to read that section from the scriptures that talks about what happened there. Now, there were long lines and people were trying to push to get ahead. There was one group that was from Belarus, another group that was from South America that were pushing in on us. Orthodox priests who were telling us that our time was up, that we had to keep going and get out of there. It was chaos, but it was beautiful chaos. and is the kind of chaos into which Jesus entered into history. Now, before we end, I want to tell you about the Christians in the Holy Land, because this is something that's really near and dear to my heart. A lot of times when we think of the Holy Land, we think of Christians and Muslims and Jews all living together in unity and all living together in friendship over this one place. But the truth is anything from that. There is a certain level of peace in that there is not an active war going on, but in many ways, there's constant tension and constant struggle, and especially for Christians as they find themselves as a minority in this area of the world. There are foreign nations that pour money into the West Bank in order to buy up Christian businesses and drive them out of town. Sometimes these pressures even become physical, and while most of the time the difficult conflict is between Muslims and Jews, a lot of times the Christian community, which is both Israeli and Palestinian, is caught in the middle of this struggle. Bethlehem has always been one of the greatest Christian cities in the Holy Land. In the 1920s, it was 84% Christian. In 2000, it was only 22% Christian. And then after the Intifada in 2000, it became only 12% Christian. And now with COVID, and with Palestine not being able to support people financially during that period of lockdown, the Christian community is likely less than 10%. Some people estimate 8%. We had the really great opportunity to visit a co-op in Bethlehem, where there are Christian artisans who are committed to staying in the Holy Land and making products to sell in order to support their families. Beautiful sculptures of olive wood that you probably have seen before, rosaries and beautiful icons, and of course some other things. But they also took time to tell us about their lives and about their efforts and their experience in the Holy Land. And of course, yes, they were trying to sell us some stuff, but it was also very kind and very sincere, and it was a good insight into their lives. The Christians in the Holy Land are a huge inspiration to me, because in a world where we take the practice of our faith for granted, when we look around and we have a Catholic church around every corner and nobody bats an eye at somebody going to church, the Christians in the Holy Land who know that they would be able to find prosperity anywhere else in the world, they choose to live here, and they choose to be intentional about the practice of their faith. I try to pray for Christians in the Holy Land every Friday at Mass, and I invite you to maybe consider if God might be calling you to pray for them and to support them as well. If you're so inclined, you can also support their efforts financially through the Franciscan Foundation of the Holy Land. One of the greatest things that you can do to support them is to go on a pilgrimage yourself. So if you ever get the opportunity, I encourage you to take it. To finish things up, I wanted to share a recording that I took of one of those young Christians singing the Our Father in Jesus' native language of Aramaic. It was beautiful and mysterious and mournful at the same time. But as we listen to it, let's take a minute to pray for the Christians in the Holy Land. We'll see you again soon. Peace.
يوم عاشق قلال حاوبان الوحق هي كانوا دوف حيلان شباقي الحيوبين لو تعلن لسيان